What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming back with another box office breakdown video, which saw the brand new release of the film Nope this weekend from Jordan Peele. Definitely not his wokest film. In fact, there really isn't much commentary at all in this film as compared to his other movies, but this film is not doing nearly as well as the film Us did, and though it is doing, as far as the opening weekend is concerned, better than his first film, Get Out, it's not seeing the same type of positive word of mouth that the first film ended up getting, which was able to propel that film to success. And so even though those two films, both Get Out and Us, were able to basically have the same end result, as far as overall box office is concerned, there's a big question mark next to Nope about whether or not it's going to be able to match the same type of success that the other films were able to do, especially with a much larger budget. So we'll dive into that. We'll also dive into the third weekend numbers for Thor, Love, and Thunder, which still has not broken even. Yeah, that's right. Thor, Love, and Thunder has still not hit its break-even point, has not made any money whatsoever at this point, is still making up the amount of money that it costs to actually create the film itself. And again, a reminder that studios only get about 60% of the entire box office, which is the reason why, if you look at the numbers for the production budget, you work out some calculations for the actual marketing costs, and you think, wait a minute, hasn't it reached that point? Au contraire, not until it's able to surpass it even more so, because it has to make up for the fact it does not get 100% of all of the box office receipts when everything is said and done. So, as we can see from the film Nope from Universal, $44 million for this movie. Again, not the highest grossing opening weekend for Jordan Peele, but a solid start nonetheless. The projections for this film was going to be around $50 to $55 million, and so it definitely is coming in on the low end of those projections, but it is still within the range of a lot of the people, but definitely not nearly as strong as some of the other films we've seen from him. We also have Thor, Love, and Thunder dropping to the number 2 spot, making $22 million, another 53% drop. They're still keeping it in theaters, however. It has made $276.2 million domestically. However, because this film is just not really having that strong of weeks from week to week, it is still not gotten to its break-even point. It likely will be able to get to that point by the end of next weekend, if I had to make a prediction that it'll reach its break-even point. The real question, though, is how much actual profit does this film actually see? Because the word of mouth on this film has not been that great. We, of course, also recognize that the film itself is not very good, and so I think that a lot of people are starting to wake up to that fact, and so we're going to look at this film, we're going to follow it to see just how much actual profit does it make, but regardless of that, it's not going to be a whole lot. It's going to be one of the lowest grossing MCU films of all time, not including, of course, the most recent flops that have come from Disney during the COVID era. We have Minions coming out the number 3 spot from Universal, making another $17.7 million. Speaking of films that are not flops and are not struggling to break even, this film has easily broken even, been out just 1 week longer than Thor, Love, and Thunder, but has already made a mass amount of profit. A lot of that is, of course, thanks to it costing a lot less than the incredibly bloated Thor, Love, and Thunder, but Minions still showing up and still doing very strong. We have the second weekend for Where the Crawdads Sing from Sony, based off of a book, a 40% drop, not bad at all. This film is on pace to be able to make its money back and make a little bit of profit to boot. Gun Maverick continues to be in the top 5, even after being out for 9 weeks, still making $10 million this weekend, and still out at over 3,000 screens. Very impressive numbers here, $635.5 million domestically. This is starting to put this film in the same area of being able to outpace and already outpacing the numbers that we saw for Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Of course, when you adjust for inflation, some things sometimes change, but the fact that this movie is even within the discussion of some of these much bigger, larger properties, I think is another huge sign as to why this film is being so successful, is because it actually gives fans what they want and does not preach to them, whereas properties like Star Wars: Last Jedi, though it did make $1.3 billion, when you remind yourself that that was $700 million less than the previous film, and it was the very beginning of the continued downward trek of the Star Wars IP in general, yeah, makes you wonder, wait a minute, why haven't they made a lot of movies recently? Oh, that's right, because they are worried that it's not going to be a profitable franchise for much longer, it would be my guess. Elvis coming in at number 6, still making some money, $6.3 million, very close now to its break-even point, right at the cusp of it. Paws of Fury dropped like a light, 39%, even though it's a small drop as far as percentage is concerned, because I say it dropped like a light because of the fact it only made about $6 million in its domestic opening. It's not really making much of anything, and because of the budget for this film, it is likely to be a pretty massive flop. The Black Phone coming at the number 8 spot with another $3.4 million. Rise of World Dominion still hanging around after 7 weeks with another $2.9 million, but as you can see, they're starting to pull this from theaters, especially now that this is available on on demand. We also have Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, a indie film, which made $1.3 million. Then that rounds off the top 10. Looking at the actual worldwide totals, we can see that we don't have anything yet for Nope. We just have the $44 million domestic. We also have Thor: Love and Thunder now at, as I mentioned previously, $598.2 million. This film needs to make $625 million to break even. It is getting close to that point. As you can see, it's 2.4 times its production budget at this point, which means that I think that by next weekend, we will see the film hit its break-even point and obviously make a little bit of profit. But I still think it's amazing nonetheless that you heard a lot of people, a lot of the so-called box office experts going out of their way to say, oh man, this film, you can't say it's a failure. Look how great it's doing. And it's going to barely break even and maybe make a little bit of profit, maybe make $50 million in profit, which when you looked at some of the other major releases from Marvel, that puts it at the bottom of the food chain as far as films that actually made profit. Because we're not going to talk about the films that actually lost money at the box office. But yeah, please continue spinning that narrative. Anyway, Minions: The Rise of Gru, $640.2 million at this point. Pretty insane numbers there, where the Crawdads sitting at $42.4 million worldwide. Top Gun Maverick at $1.282 billion. So yes, $1.3 billion is absolutely in the cards for this film. The fact that it's still been 9 weeks, they still have not put this out on they haven't put it out on Paramount Plus, and there is no word yet about when it'll be available on PVOD. The fact is that this film is doing incredibly well, especially when you look at both the domestic and international numbers, as strong as they are. Hey, kudos to them for actually doing something, whereas Jurassic World Dominion has indeed made a lot of money, but also could have and should have made $1 billion, but did not really do as well with the domestic market. Again, $300 million less than what Top Gun Maverick was able to put forward. And it's only really because of an international box office, which includes a massive $100+ million from communist China. Again, much of that going to the CCP themselves. They have those people, of course, to thank for being able to perpetuate their really terrible, terrible movie, because let's just be honest, the movie is trash. Looking at some charting, because we like to do some charting here. As you can see, the $44 million for Nope is a pretty strong start. That puts the film right now at $75.6 million in the red, but it is still the very first week. We don't have any international numbers yet, and I imagine we'll probably see the film drop around 50% or so next week, so expect this movie to be able to probably get pretty close to $100 million even domestically by the end of next weekend when you add in all the weekday totals, of course. And I think that when you add in any international numbers, I think you'll probably see the film get closer to 150. And this film only needs to be able to make $170 million to break even. And so since the numbers that I'm throwing out there are probably relatively early on in its release, the chances of Nope being able to make its money back and make a little bit of profit are still at this point pretty good. So unless everything just falls off a cliff, it's going to be hard to, it's going to be hard to see the film not being able to do that. And I know that a lot of people are not big fans of Jordan Peele, and I understand why. I think that there is a huge case, a very strong case to be made that the dude is a racist, especially when you look at his other films, which are just obsessed with race and demonizing very specific groups of people. I do think that nonetheless, he is a talented filmmaker, and this film is the least preachy of the films. It's also one of the weaker stories, and so I think that you're going to see some people happy because it's not preaching to them, but then other people going to be not happy still because of the fact that it is also just not that great of a narrative. Let's just say that the twists and turns don't really pay off, and it just comes across as very long, overblown, overtold, overlong story. Where the Crawdads sitting at $42.4 million, again, now only $10 million in the red. My projections have that film making somewhere between $30,000 to $52,000 or $14.8 million. I think that is probably going to get closer to that $7 to $14 million number based off of the numbers that we're seeing. As you can see from Paws of Fury, even though it had a very small drop percentage-wise, I'm projecting it to make, or rather to lose roughly around $53 million. So it's not expected to make a whole lot more money. And when you look at Thor: Love and Thunder at $598.2 million worldwide, the film is now currently $16 million still in the red. And so even though it is likely to pass that up by next weekend, the fact that it's still in the red after a few weeks for a Marvel film is not a very good sign of things to come. And so with that new trailer coming out also for Wakanda Forever, and it looking dubious at best, it's going to be a real question mark as to whether or not that film is going to be able to match previous releases for Marvel, though I do still strongly project that there is going to be a massive surge of domestic people going to see that movie, mostly because they're going to want to see it as an homage to Chadwick Boseman or something to that effect. I think the African-American community is going to show up in droves to go see it, just like they did with the first Black Panther film, which people often forget made over $700 million domestically, one of the highest grossing Marvel domestics, in fact, of all time. And so when you have that film up there with some of the other big boys on the block, it does seem to indicate and seems to show that is very likely still a possibility. But these are the numbers as they stand. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you want to see a much fuller, more fun-filled breakdown, go check me out over at the OMB Reviews channel. Just got to 26,000 subscribers. Thank you all very much for helping me out with that. You are mad lads. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Please make sure you smash that like button, lap that fire button. Honestly, you're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.